Good morning, Isaac. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderfully terrible.
Pretty much like the rest of our industry, right?
Yeah, that is my greeting on every phone call I'm getting these days. If someone I haven't talked to in a while, whenever they ask me, wonderfully terrible is my go-to.
Well, it's probably not a very bad answer. It's these are certainly unique times that we're in, and I don't know, man. Every conversation I have is interesting, exciting, depressing, horrible, awesome. It's just like, my whole world is like this. You start the day
Yeah,
with an incredible idea, and this is what we're going to do today. And you get run over by four trucks and punched in the face and kicked in the balls, and everything else happens. And it's like,
yeah.
oh boy, what was that? So, yeah, so I'm really happy that you were able to make it on here. I've been reaching out to you, or we've been kind of playing phone tag or email tag for a couple of weeks, and I think the timing is good because I think your situation has certainly evolved over the past couple of weeks to a different status today than it was a couple weeks ago, and I really want to get into some of those things that you've been doing and successes that you've managed to achieve and things like that. But first, before we really get into this, one of the things that's so interesting, I think, about you and what you've done is, to be perfectly honest, I had no idea who you were. I'd never heard your name before. I've been in this industry 30 years. I know a lot of people, and I had no idea who you were. So I was like, who the hell is this Isaac character? And how did he get so much to happen so quickly? So Isaac, what is your background? Like how did you get to where we're going to talk about when you started the petition, but what's the part before that?
Um, my background is, a lot of people, you just end up in this live events industry. You don't really know exists. I mean, we know we can't even explain half the time to our loved ones what we do. But my
Yeah.
background was going to college for music studio production, being a recording engineer, looking to be a record producer, and kind of went down that path a number of years to owning and operating a couple studios, building studios from the ground up. And then one day, a good friend of mine who I connected with through doing House of Worship sound and things like that, he said, you want to come on a gig with me in Dallas, Texas? And I said, sure. And I went and did a little corporate audio gig, and I said, wow, this is easy. You
Oops.
mean I don't, you mean I don't have to chase down musicians for money and
Right.
spend 3 days trying to sell a 2-hour recording session?
No, you
So,
have to chase down clients for money now instead of musicians. You're
exactly.
going to chase the pastor or the
Yeah.
the manager or the promoter or the whatever, right?
So that was my first taste of it about 7-8 years ago, and then slowly kind of developed it. Being an entrepreneur, obviously, this is an industry where it's ripe for small businesses and people that are motivated to kind of find a niche. So I developed some relationships. Next thing you know, myself and him started a company and went from there. Just grew that company, but then also kind of partnered with other firms. So I also had jobs while having the company at the same time, and it blossomed from there. Went from being just basically an A1, learning enough video to be dangerous, and then get good at video, and then lighting. So we come in just a basic jack of all trades. So I could technical direct shows or project manage, and then have
Right.
kind of transitioned now into this role with Digerati, where it's more on the operations side. Where yes, I'll go on the bigger shows, but it's more so making sure that things are in place and handling those major moments when things are going wrong, and just picking up the phone and knowing what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So, being an entrepreneurial person, you started your own business. Is that still running today, or you had to bury that to
Uh,
do what you're doing today?
It is still going on. Fortunately, it was still going on enough in 2019 where actually, I'm able to actually pull a little income from that business in the Payroll
Nice.
Protection Act. It actually shouldn't have been that way. We should have actually been rolled into some other things, but actually we ended up lucking out in that sense. And other senses, this hit at a really wrong time when we were actually, I mean, kind of every year this is getting bigger and we're a younger business and you can grow quickly. So we definitely extended ourselves going into this year.
Yeah.
So, so it's that constant struggle. But entrepreneurial wise, I'm very driven for that. And I'm always got a little side venture idea going and trying to do
Yeah.
something, but which works well for us, what we do in the AV world.
Yeah.
We're meeting lots of people and
Yeah.
making amazing connections every day.
Yeah, it's just interesting. You don't often talk to people who are running their own business while being somewhat involved in operations in a larger business as well. So, I think it's a unique opportunity to be able to do both and to kind of maximize on both. And then also to take on this, third role, which we're really here to
Yeah,
talk about as well. So,
absolutely.
yeah. So one day you're in the AV business and, let's say, what date was it? February 10th or something? February
Pro-
15th?
yeah, well, I would even say it's earlier than that. I think it was maybe around the first week in February. It was a French client in LA. We were going back and forth about kind of this whole rendering of event. They had this whole cosmetic launch we were doing up on top of, top floor of one of the buildings in LA. And it's
Hmm.
like, oh, what do we want to do? Can you get me the actual AV requirements? Are we going to go an LED wall? Are we going to go TVs into the set? And then the conversation just kind of shifted. We're going to have to pull the plug on this, and we're going to postpone this indefinitely because of the coronavirus concerns. And it kind of hit me, wow, this is not a Southeast Asia problem. This is about to start affecting our business here in the US very quickly, potentially.
Right.
So that was the first red alert flag. And then it was talking with, the other leadership within Digerati about, hey, this is something we might see on the horizon. Let's just start looking at this. And of course, by, mid-February, okay, we're starting to see events fall off in March, and then by the end of February, it's already all right. What are we going to do? Because March is probably going to be gone. We're
Right.
crossing our fingers about April, but let's have the plan. And unfortunately, that plan was put in place, had to be executed to every worst case scenario after that.
Yeah. So did you actually get laid off?
Yes,
Yeah.
but at the
So,
same time, there's a relationship in these businesses. So
oh, of
it's, am
course.
I still working? Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean it's a weird, yeah, I get it. Nudge and a wink, right? I get it.
Yeah,
Well, and everybody's going to be back working as soon as that money shows up, because
exactly.
we have to spend 75% of it on payroll. So, um, but the interesting timing or the interesting dynamic of all of this in such a horrible time is that companies are laying off sometimes. Like, I listened to one podcast that was the CEO and founder of Shake Shack, and he laid off, if I remember correctly, it was like 2,100 of his 2,200 employees.
Ooh,
That's 95% of your employees. That's a
yeah,
bad week for you and the employees. But,
yeah,
companies are being so just kind and so empathetic and so real about it all. Like, it's not just, hey, I'm taking all the money, get lost. It's, you know, we need to do this. I'm really sorry. We're going to do everything we can to help
yeah,
you. We'll pay your health insurance for a couple of weeks. We'll call you back as soon as we can. But at the same
yeah.
time, I mean, if the company can't afford to keep its doors open, they're no good to either of you, right?
And I think that was what really hard for the production industry because we had to do it way before everyone else in the
Yeah.
nation did. So the conversation was very difficult with our guys because they didn't see it on the level we saw it, and we knew completely that this had to be done before other businesses. You saw these mass layoffs across the country, but we got hit first. Like we knew everything was falling off the books.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's call it, mid-February or whatever. You get laid off and you're thinking, okay, this is getting really serious. We got to do something. Or maybe it happened before you got laid off or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you're thinking, I've got to do something. Like, you're sitting there feeling rather hopeless or whatever. How did these thoughts process for you to come to the point of launching this petition
Oh,
for the COVID-19 petition?
so it was a combination with my good buddy Trevor Zelinski, and kind of I mean, when we first did it, a week ago, I was having conversations. What can we do? I'm calling up my buddy. I'm like, hey, this is about to happen. Everyone's going to be out of work. They're not going to have money. What can we do just to start a fund and raise money? And he's like, oh, I don't know if we could do that, but it's an amazing idea. But I mean, how can we pull that off? Or, can we start lobbying for attention for this? And this was probably March, right around March 1 is when I was starting thinking these thoughts. And then, just having these conversations within the business and talking about, well, what are we going to do during this time? And I kind of made a statement at one point, we could try to, do sales and talk to future clients and really, hey, we're all down now. Let's take some time and really talk about what business looks like on the outside of this and plan some events. And then we tried that and it was like, what are you doing? Don't call me.
Yeah.
And so the next thought is I said, I don't know what we can do other than this. I mean, we could plan and do inventory and work on all this stuff, but I mean, the only thing I think we can do during this time is build relationships. And I just made that statement. And then, I mean, I had been obviously, because I knew what was happening, I was down in the dumps, So I was already at home and just like, all right, I don't know what's going to do. These next weeks are going to be terrible.
Do you
And
have
then
kids? Do you have kids
I
at home?
do. I have
Yeah.
4 children at home,
So
7, 5, and 2-year-old twins. So
oh,
I have
wow.
kids.
So it's very different. I mean, when you're used to an office environment and working around adults in a very fast paced sort of, okay, we got to do this, we got to do this. And now all of a sudden you've got 4 kids
Yeah.
tugging at you saying, Daddy, let's play baseball,
Oh,
or,
that was in my vision in my head is, well, we're going to be downtime. My son's he's a great baseball player. We're going to be training 2 hours a day and this kid's going to be throwing 70 miles an hour at
yeah,
8 years old by the time we're done with this.
yeah,
But what really woke me up was that Wednesday night when President Trump addressed the nation, and it clicked. I heard the mention of the airline industry and the cruise ship industry, and that we'd create a bailout package for 50 billion. I quickly thought, it just dawned on me, wow, we're not even a thought right now.
yeah,
And I said, that's scary. So the next day I get on the phone with my good friend Trevor, who's works with me at Digerati, and he just basically, I'm just talking this through, and like, this is crazy. Like, what is our industry going to do? Like, we're going to, just knowing how bad this was going to be for this industry, because I've been thinking about it for a month. And then he said, you said something, we can only build relationships. I think you should go write a petition. And I was like, okay. And so I sat down and for about, spent about probably 3 hours going through just crafting the thoughts, rewriting it a couple of times, and doing the best economic data research I could possibly do in about 30 minutes to
yeah.
come up with some semblance of what would a bailout even look like for our industry? What would the numbers be? Because I felt like you can't just tell people what the problem is. I'm production. I'm always about, this is your problem and here's some solutions. So I had to
Yeah.
give solutions in this petition. And so I spitballed it, got my wife to proofread it, and about 3:00 on Thursday afternoon, just shot it out there. Quickly just went to every Facebook group I possibly knew for production guys and stagehands and, places where I would go to find labor in a pinch or things like that, and just started posting this thing. And then people started signing it quickly, and I went away and then came back. And I was like, all of a sudden, maybe within like 45 minutes, an hour, 1,000 people had signed it.
Yeah.
And then, I'm sitting there just watching it all night. It's like, you can't take your eyes off the screen. Like every 5
Yeah.
minutes, refresh. I was like, this isn't slowing down. So,
Yeah.
we're up to like 15,000, like at 4 a.m. in the morning. And I'm sitting here writing updates to the petition, like, thank you, keep sharing, and like
Yeah.
putting it out there. And then the thing just took off just from kind of the bottom of the industry with stagehands and technicians, and just started going all over.
So when you say the industry, like you said, you sat down for 30 minutes to try and figure out the numbers and stuff. So you come from more of an AV background. Um, were you also paying attention to the touring industry and to the corporate theater and to, all the different parts, theater, Broadway, television?
When I first wrote it, I thought about, I knew I thought about touring. I definitely thought that, and I couldn't quickly find numbers of how to kind of mesh that together. And I knew I obviously done market research in our sector where we really focus on the trade shows, the conferences, the corporate events. I knew our numbers were pretty significant.
Yeah.
So I knew I could pull from numbers from that. But the cool thing was, though, that quickly as this petition got out, I quickly realized, holy cow, live events is I use this term live events, and I didn't realize how big it was going to be, how much of us are really in live events and totally interconnected. And what really quickly developed was this whole idea of live events is much more than just the business corporate side that I work in, and it's much more than just the entertainment and the touring side. And even that side got huger in my mind. I didn't even think about Broadway, even though, I have a good friend from college who's one of the leads in Hamilton. They're a live event just like we are.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, it was separate in my mind. The sports leagues were postponing. That was big happening then. It didn't dawn on me, hold on, all professional sports are live events, and they're in
Yeah.
the same boat we are. Pretty much and it really came down to within like the day after I wrote the petition, I realized, we are the large gatherings industry. So if we can't have large gatherings, our industry literally should be made up, and we should define ourselves of anything where we draw our revenue from the gathering of social and business events for a purpose like that.
Yeah.
And restaurants is a gray area because they have a venue side, but I always thought they're a little bit different, and they have a separate lobby, but they're in that hospitality that kind of basically supports live events. So
Right.
there's this
Right.
crossover between that.
Well, even sports are unique in that I believe that most of the major sports leagues, let's say this continues on till the end of the year, God forbid. Um, I believe the NFL will be able to start. They just might start with either a limited or non existent live crowd.
Yeah.
And, as bizarre as that is, I believe most of the NFL's revenue comes not from the people in the seats, but the people behind the screen watching television. So, they can safely put a crew in there and safely put a team on the field without people, getting sick by playing football or whatever. And I think that's the right thing to do, because I think, the nation needs to be able to watch live sports. We want to watch the NFL kick off, in October or September or whatever it is. Um, so I think like the one that's doing it right now, and I doubt you're a big fan, but I'm a UFC fan.
Yeah, I heard about this.
And yeah, Dana White, I think, has, as of yesterday on my happy hour, I heard that he's got some private island rented or something, and they're doing the fight on the private island next weekend. And because nowhere in the U.S. he can do, a live sporting event like that. So,
Yep.
I think sports are a little bit separate. I'm a huge racing fan. Formula One, I believe, will get back to racing relatively soon, probably July or something. And yeah, they may not have the big crowds there, but
Yeah.
they'll still show the races on television. That's where they make the real
They'll
money.
at least get some TV revenue. I do think the NFL's. I mean, having paid for a couple Bears tickets last year
Yeah.
to take my wife to the game, they do make a decent amount of money on those ticket sales.
Of
But
course they do. Of course they do.
but
But it's billions of dollars in television rights and
exactly.
stuff.
And
So,
right now that we need content, and I do agree completely with you that they will get back to business a lot faster than what we have in the 100% pure live events realm of people paying to actually go to an event, or an event being there in person that doesn't have a value or revenue generated from being televised.
yeah, yeah. So you kicked out this petition, the COVID-19 petition, and I remember, I hated you for a couple days because it was filling my Facebook feed and everything. I mean, I was just getting hammered by friends asking me to sign this thing, which I signed the first time I saw it. The first time it came through my inbox, I signed it, and so I saw this thing obviously happening. I'm thinking, okay, somebody's on to something here. This is growing. And so, the next day, how did that all go for you?
So what started happening is, I mean, like the first day, so it launched on a Thursday, and by Friday afternoon, I started getting messages on LinkedIn and people just finding me. And one of the first calls I got was from Eileen Valois from PRG, who does a ton of big production for them.
Mm-hmm.
She's a senior VP. And so that call was just a real congratulatory, and like, if I can do anything, just feel free to reach out. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I just talked to the woman who produces the Super Bowl.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, wow, this thing is going to do something to my life and social life somehow. I don't know how yet, but it's going to change. So I started getting these messages and calls from people, and it dawned on me, I had a couple of people that said, hey, I want to do more. Well, I started thinking, well, what's more? I don't know 100% yet, but why don't I just throw some ideas out to them? So I said, instead of just calling people individually, I said, hey, Saturday morning, 10 a.m., are you guys available? Two people I asked, are you available to do a conference call? I have a couple of people that are interested in what we could do beyond just this petition. And so on that conference call, it ended up being six people because, another couple, four more people hit me up and was like, what can I do? And I just shot it out to anyone who reached out to me an email. Hey, if you can make it, make it. And so from that conference call, I was like, all right, everyone just kind of, it was interesting. Everyone was saying the same things. And it wasn't just the same things that when they're in the petition, it was the same things we were all feeling. And it was just that continual one thing that you could talk to everyone here. Everyone quickly grasped we were the first to be affected and we're going to be the last one to come out of it. And so from that call, we said, well, we'll have another call tomorrow on Sunday and figure out what our next steps are. And it kind of came like, we take this position and we kind of, we know that, a petition, is it going to really get to the president's desk, to the Congress's desk? Maybe it will, maybe it won't, just from people signing it. But what can we do to actually do what other organizations are doing, do letter writing and just activism around it? So we started with that idea, kept doing calls. And then I think it was maybe the next Tuesday or Wednesday, I was on a webinar with the International Live Events Association, their Austin chapter, and they had a cool little webinar. And I just started talking about the petition, and they kind of wanted me to speak about, this petition, how it took off, and the, potential grassroots movement that was happening behind it. And then as I was talking with everyone in the thing, and in the webinar, it kind of dawned on me the idea of what was happening for our industry and why we kind of got caught flat-footed is we all really don't realize how big we were. We have these strong silos in each sector of the live events industry, but we never have actually collaborated to the point we've never had to collaborate on the point of national level, because this is unprecedented, to actually advocate for all of our interests at once. And so it dawned on me that it wasn't really that we needed to create a movement to get these asks addressed. The biggest thing in the interim was to actually try to mobilize everyone to become one large coalition of the entire broad industry, so that when you put that whole industry together, all those voices together, it's a very powerful lobby to get some attention and get some specific remedies from Washington, because now Washington can realize how large our industry truly is. So that's kind of
Right.
where this idea of, because before we were just a petition, everyone was like, let's support the petition, get it spread. Let's get millions of people to sign that. But that kind of point, and then starting to have that conversation on this conference call that we were doing daily, which then had ballooned to maybe 20 people. Now it's like around 40 to 50, 60 people that are kind of engaged really in volunteering in committees. But out of that kind of came this idea of we need to form a coalition. And then we had some people who wanted to do fundraising. And so someone said, well, we can get our lawyers to draft up the document for at pro bono, and we can form a 501c6 to actually be an official organization and kind of create and enact what our vision was to unify the entire live events industry. And we get a lot of questions about, what is our purpose? And I mean, is there a purpose beyond this? I don't know. Right now, the focus is just trying to unite the industry and making sure we're all taking care of each other, and we're getting the voice heard really well for the entire industry in Washington. And it's really, we're not, and the other questions people get, well, are you trying to replace any organization? The answer to that is no. There's a lot of great organizations out there. We're really trying to just create where we saw a need for uniting pretty much a top to bottom coalition, because we have a ton of support just from the workers, but we also have a number of companies, larger companies, I mean, PRG signing on. So it's this really great coalition of grassroots where you have unlikely partners working together all in the same interest. And the hope is to get the large trade organizations in the live events entertainment side, and also the live events corporate and business side, and then the wedding side and social side to all come together as one. And we actually had a great conversation this morning around it, talking with Florida International University. He's going to kind of be one of our leading higher ed partners and kind of work to get these hospitality programs to help supporting it. But it's really about just creating this movement to create a really strong voice, because when you look at the numbers, we're much larger, and we fuel the airline industry, but they have a very strong presence in Washington because they've been doing it before, and they know they're all together. They know their numbers well, versus the live events. We haven't ever had to do it. Meetings Business is a great example of what we are, in a sense, is they reacted to the crisis and 2008 when when the nation didn't understand the importance of business meetings and conferences, and they were being called junkets. And meetings means business quickly activated and said, no, no, there is a huge industry behind this. This is driving a lot of revenue. This needs to happen. So we're similar. We're kind of like, in a sense, following in their footsteps and trying to bring together now a larger live events coalition to get more attention to what live events needs from the federal government. And I think the amazing part of this is whether we know we're going to survive this somehow, some way. But at the end of this, when you get more people talking and collaborating together, it's interesting where we could take live events from this.
Yeah.
When there's more collaborations between these different silos.
So a couple of questions. You talk about when we get through this and we're going to survive this and things like that. Um, do you think you're going to maintain the same passion and interest level from people, from PRG, from the other companies out there that are supporting it, from this group that you say are turning up on these, is it daily conference calls that you're doing right now?
We've actually had to cut back the conference calls because they got too big, and at some point you have to start compartmentalizing the activities. So really, we're having multiple conference calls within committees. So we
Right.
have different committees, and then like today, we're going to do a big kind of large conference call, kind of like a town hall. At this point, it's kind of crazy that after 3 weeks, I can say we have an organization where we have a town hall meeting to talk about now what our organizational structure is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, so I guess my question is, does the passion and does the excitement and interest level continue, once we see daylight on the other end of this thing? And I keep calling it day 91, which we thought when I was calling it day 91, we thought that was incredibly conservative, and we were really going to be looking at 61 days. Meaning the day that you're walking out of this, the day that you've recovered and you're going, look at the sunlight, let's go to work. Um,
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I know the answer is that the people that are involved in leading this are very passionate and seeing where this can go beyond this, because there are other needs that can be met by a coalition like that aren't being met right now.
right, right,
There are needs and things, because this the issue is the main issue is because of this crisis, we saw there's a very vulnerable section of the live events industry, and that's these very small businesses in the large freelancer community that have very different needs than other freelancers. In that, there's the freelancers union and things like that, just for general free people that are now working in the modern economy as gig workers. But we see that there's definitely needs around freelancers and some different types of supports that maybe we can address at the end of this.
right.
But
No,
right now, like
I
I said, we're
completely
just
agree.
so focused. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, is this your full time gig now?
Um, no, I mean it is okay. Yes, it's the full time gig, but I mean it's a 20-hour day job at this point, doing this and making sure the other things that are happening need to happen, and collaborating on other projects and getting ready. I still have a business to help with, and discussing with management. We applying for the PPP loans and making sure we have a plan to bring guys back and having conference calls with them. But no,
Right.
this is definitely a full time and a half. It's beyond a full time job. It's complete passion.
Yeah. And so, hopefully at some point, obviously, once it becomes a full blown not for profit, hopefully it can pay you some sort of a salary, I would think.
Maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
I love what I do on shows. So I don't know if I'd ever leave per se,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how this coalition potentially will evolve, but I know, and having calls like with FIU this morning and finding this niche, because there is this need. Like, events is such a strong industry, and what I'd like to see come out of it too is that we get recognized on the federal level as the live events industry, and we actually start seeing true paths into these careers that we see. There's already, talking with FIU, the biggest demand they have right now in hospitality programs is for event management and event technology. And
Hmm.
so getting actually maybe getting higher education involved at the end of this too as well, to really, because I know for me, I have a huge labor shortage getting good guys to continue to be out on shows.
Right.
I'm hiring friends from high school that are just out at work at times and say, hey, here, come here, get a little training, hop in a truck, drive here,
Yeah.
follow him around and wrap that cable right, or we're going to strangle you.
But the coalition, what really is the I guess end game today for the coalition? So you're lobbying, obviously trying to get funding for people in our industry, whether it's freelancers, gig workers, whatever, small businesses. So you're helping to create a lobby or a voice to
Hmm.
Washington, a louder, bigger voice, a more collective voice, I guess,
Yeah.
other than just me screaming at Washington or PRG screaming at Washington. You've now got a collective or a coalition of
Yes.
people that
Yep.
are screaming at Washington in competition with airlines and other people who want money as well. But beyond going to Washington for money, what are we trying to accomplish?
We're trying to accomplish a level of awareness and respect nationally with an everyday person, because we're an industry that is known for being very good at what we do, and that's being behind the scenes. So no one knows we exist,
Yeah.
and we're much larger than people realize. And so the goal of this is it'd be nice where I don't have to explain to, my aunt, I work in live events. Oh, what's that? Are you a DJ?
Yeah.
um, it would be nice at the end of this that we have a respect. I think we have a respect. Not saying we're disrespected, but it would be nice that people know that the live events industry is the second largest sector of the economy, employment wise. I mean, there's different ways you can look at it. I mean, revenue wise, we're dependent on other things, but that are employed through live events are just staggering.
Hmm. That's very interesting. So, speaking of numbers, tell me some numbers. Like how big did the petition get? Just how big is this movement getting that you've created?
Oh, well, right now the petition's close to 500,000 signatures, and
Wow.
that's pretty well. It's slowed down a lot because it's gone through the main industry circles, it gets limited to where you are. I think there's a lot more people that will end up signing on to it that are in our industry that just hasn't reached them, and not everyone signs a petition because, I mean, honestly, before this, I've signed maybe 4 or 5 petitions in my life because, well, the average person thinks, is a petition really effective? And I would, 4 weeks ago, I probably wouldn't have told you. I have no idea. Now I can tell you, yeah, petition can be very effective because there's just so much that moves with it. So numbers wise, that's where we're at with the petition. We have about 40 to 60 people. We have 60 people engaged on a national level trying to lead this in committees and push things forward and ideas. We have a small, I basically compartmentalized. I have a leadership kind of executive committee of about 6 people that started in the beginning who really showed a passion and were continuing on the phone with me developing this. So they're really the core leadership team at this point. And as we get larger and add people and key partners on, that leadership team will grow, and eventually we'll have to have an intern board. Numbers wise, we've really stalled a little in. We have a lot of people who signed up companies wise, and the support has signed on to the petition, but we're really looking to engage this next week of creating like a logo page, but also working with those people. So we have about 100 companies that say they want to partner to some extent and support the petition, and we're going to be engaging them very much in the next week. So that's where our numbers wise and what the industry looks like. I mean, we're estimating when all's said and told that you're looking around probably 10 to 12 million workers are
Wow.
connected in some way to a live event. Because you're looking at just the corporate and meetings business side of things. In 2006, the studies, 2016, the study showed that it supports 5 million. And you're just talking about that one section. When you start talking about everything that touches a live event, to event florists, to the weddings industry. When you start bringing in, I mean, live events, you have to include full-time gigging musicians and local cities that just derive their income just on playing events, playing venues, playing small venues, playing weddings.
Yeah.
There's a you just you start to see, wow,
Caterers,
there are a
truck
lot of people.
drivers,
Yeah, you got it.
yeah. I mean, there's so many people involved in putting an event on, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's a festival concert or, like you said, weddings and corporate meetings and all
Yeah.
kinds of things. So, yeah, I mean, I think people forget about a lot of those fringe people. They think, okay, you've got 4 musicians on stage, you've got 12 guys on the lighting crew, 8 guys on the audio crew, a designer, a front of house guy. I mean, we're not talking about very big numbers here, are we?
No.
But it's so
No, but when
false.
you
Yeah.
think about all the people that came and brought that whole event together,
Yeah.
It just gets crazy.
So have you been raising funds, or like,
That is
is it privately funded? Is it,
Yeah, right now it's just out of my pocket and some of the other people's
yeah.
pockets. But I mean, interesting enough, we got a bank account 2 weeks ago, not 2 weeks ago, 2 days ago.
Oh,
And right
wow.
now we're just in the first, I've just actually put out a call last night just to get people to chip in what they can within this first 60 of the leadership. Cause I believe, you know, if you're leading this thing, you need to put a little bit, whatever you can put behind what we're doing. And
Right.
then we'll probably start reaching out to people who signed the petition and very nicely, you know, give what you can, because we're not looking for anyone to put themselves in a bad financial position. But at the same time, we put that petition out on change.org, and we found, had I known, the platform obviously has a lot of name recognition, but quickly I found out that they've changed some fundraising practices that I probably don't agree with. So I think we have no idea how much money actually got donated to change.org in that petition. We have reached out to their CEO to try to have a discussion with them. That hasn't gone so well yet, but that can be a developing thing that we work on. But we know that people were passionate in putting towards the cause, and the goal would be to get some monies to kind of make sure the organization is able to function. But we have a
Right.
PR campaign going on. We're really trying to get a lot of high profile
So
endorsements.
hang on a sec though. Back to this change.org thing. So people
Yeah.
donated money and we don't know where that went.
Yeah. Well, we know
Oh
where it
my
went.
God.
So
Ouch.
we do know where it went. We just don't know how much, because change.org, and at the beginning of this year, had changed where they used to raise funds, and the funds would actually go to support the petition, because they say, oh, the petition writer may need gas money to go deliver the petition. He may need to do this or that. And they would say, well, you can donate money and we'll just take like a 0.5% or 5%. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember exactly what it was. But then they changed to, no, we're not a fundraising platform, and they basically they use language. They're also not they use the .org, but they're actually a for-profit corporation, a B type, which means they have some social interest involved. But when you sign the petition, it asks you to chip in money,
Yeah.
and they give a suggestion, then they give a list of, hey, this is what other people have put and
Yeah.
put towards this. And so it's become more of a profit revenue generating
Yeah.
thing for them than supporting the actual
Well, and
petition.
sadly, there's a lot of people, myself being one of them, who would help anyone, and I like to help people one on one because I can see them, I know their family, here, let me help you out and help you
Mhm.
ride through this or whatever. I've always been a little bit leery of GoFundMe and all of these different online funding
Yeah.
mediums because, you hear like, there's a range of 1% to 30% that they're keeping of the funds that are raised. And, I don't care who you are, you shouldn't be keeping 30% of my
Yeah.
money if I'm raising it for a good cause.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah. And I was never looking to make money on the petition, but there was definitely a lot of, somewhat, it was a little bit damaging to my reputation at points, because people had thought that I was getting the money personally from that. Some of my
yeah,
people actually that got laid off earlier in our company, you know, at question, and rightfully so. I mean, if I saw that too, and the funny thing is, change.org really never even showed me that this is how they ask for money. They may have put in the fine print, but they really keep it away from the petition writer in a
right.
sense
Yeah,
of
so I
what people are
guess
giving to this.
I guess if you could go back and do one thing differently, it might be that aspect of it.
It
So,
might be.
yeah. Has anything come directly from the petition? Like not these are all sort of, fringe values and benefits and things that have happened just from the surge of popularity and information exchange, but from the petition itself, have you gotten a call from a senator or anything?
I have not spoken with any political people, surprisingly. We've put it out there to people, but I mean, maybe I know that people who are involved with this have gone and taken it to their representatives, but no one has actually reached out to talk directly with us. More so, it's
Crazy.
been the press. The press has definitely reached out and taken on this. But I also know that and that's kind of where we're at with this whole lobbying effort. It doesn't make sense to raise a ton of money and hire an army of lobbyists. I don't know if that's the answer either, because we're just in an unprecedented time. I think if we were in a normal time, we had a petition like this, you know, yeah, we'd probably be getting a lot of calls from lawmakers. Hey, I'm interested in what you got here. You got 500,000 people in, you know,
No
a couple of
kidding.
weeks, and let's
Yeah.
talk. But right now, they're just pulled so many different ways trying to address this, and it's all about. So our focus really is not. we do need to get into the lobbying game and work with other organizations that already have lobbyists. But I think we have to really focus where other people aren't and try to create a PR campaign in a sense on a
Yeah.
national level and break through to the American public at the
Yeah.
same time we're breaking through to our lawmakers.
No, I completely agree with you. And by the way, I need to apologize because I am recording from home and I've got landscapers right outside my door right now that are
That's all right. I got a
operating all
nice look
these
at this is
machines
the
and things.
garage studio here, so you might hear a few birds coming in the
Very nice.
background.
Very nice. Well, no, I mean, I literally have a guy with like some big leaf blower thing who's about to walk up on my patio and it's making a whole lot of noise. And I've got the gate on my microphone, but you still might be able to hear it loud and clear here any second. So here he
We'll be all
comes.
right.
He's coming right up on my patio now. So, anyways, yeah, I mean, that's, to me, 500,000 people on a petition has got to get the attention of some people. And from that aspect, you've certainly created something amazing on the petition itself. As for the coalition, like, my fear is the same thing as with the federal government and everything else. Like it's out of sight, out of mind. So once this crisis is over, people's intentions or passion towards a project or excitement or whatever kind of weans and goes away again. And we forget about the fact that we had a pandemic and the government goes back to doing what the government does. Healthcare goes back to normal. Everything kind of flattens out again. And so, that's my concern with something like this. Like, I hope you don't experience that because I
Yeah.
think there's a need for what you're doing.
And that's the piece why I think we really have to push hard to get the coalition, because our biggest fight is going to be that everything's going to start getting back to normal, but not for us.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have to be very loud as this country goes back to normal, and we're not, and our
Yeah.
families aren't, and our incomes aren't. So we're going to have to, and that's why right now what we're calling for is a stabilization plan that looks at the live events industry and says, we need to stabilize this for 6 to 12, 18 months even to
Yeah.
have a plan. Not that maybe we'll need to, but we need to have a plan in place so it's not we're not feeling it before it happens. We
Well,
need to know what
honestly,
needs to be done.
yeah, like I mean, a week ago, the PPP program it looked amazing, but the problem is, so you have to spend 75% of the money on your payroll, but a lot of companies have no reason to bring people back to work. Like, what? How many
Yeah.
people can you have sweeping your shop? How many
Yeah.
people can you have? You know,
Well, I
counting
mean,
your money when there's no money coming in.
ultimately, it's just unemployment through the companies, and in one sense, because in our industry, to some extent, and I mean, our guys were thinking, what we can do some things from from home. We could work on inventory together, or create some improve standard operating procedures. But you're absolutely right. It helps the workers, helps the people. But right now, we are also an industry that's very technology heavy, and we're talking about being down 10 months. And that 8-10 months, there's a ton of capital investment we would need to make to improve our equipment and our ability to deliver at the highest level. So one of the things we're calling for, to stabilize our industry, is not just about the workers, it's about the companies and providing some level of actualized net profits beyond what just overhead is, because we have to have some money to start flowing into the businesses and manufacturers we support. Because when we think about live events too, we have to think about there are a number of companies and suppliers and manufacturers that are building equipment that only we buy. And
Yeah.
if we don't have money to purchase from them, they're going to be down even longer than us to some extent.
Wow, rental companies. I mean, everyone
Yeah.
all the way down the line. I've talked to a few rental company owners who are very conservative, very financially stable, very secure companies who don't think they'll survive. And
Exactly.
that's scary. Like when,
Mhm.
okay, so you look at the companies who were already struggling 3 months ago, that's different. But when you're talking about companies that weren't, buried in debt or highly leveraged or any of those things, they were very successful, very conservative financial companies talking about closing their doors. I mean, that's a bit frightening and sad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
mean, I guess that leads me to the point, right? We kind of, the petition had to shift. I mean, initially I created a bailout based on 30 minutes of research on meetings and beans business studies. I mean, now being in this about 4 weeks now, and about this got done about 3 weeks ago, or excuse me, a week ago. Our asks have now migrated to kind of four areas. And the first area is stabilizing, the workers and the families. We hear a lot of talk from Washington about this is no one's fault and they shouldn't have to suffer. Well, unfortunately, if it's unemployment, a lot of us are going to suffer.
Hmm.
It's not, unemployment is what you max out, and best case scenario, even with the extra 600 a week, you're still maxing out in the 50s. We have a very strong middle class industry where a lot of families are single income families because someone has to go out on the road for, you know, 50-60%
Yeah,
of the
it's a
of the
great
of the
point.
year.
Very good
So
point.
so when we have a cap at $100,000, that's not going to work. We have a lot of people who are making a lot more than that in these small businesses that aren't going to be able to pay their bills, and they're going to have to down. That's not going to be good for the economy. So we're looking at stabilizing families, and we believe that a family should be able to actualize at least 90% of what their expected yearly income was going to be this year. We can't be made whole. We can sacrifice like everyone, but for the good of the good economy, good of everything moving and continuing on and supporting people, I think a family should see 90% of what they had before.
Right, right. That makes
Um,
sense.
yeah, and on the healthcare side, we know there are things in the works, but we just want to make sure that people understand on Washington, they need to make sure that our workers are being included, because a lot of our workers got laid off and they lost insurance. We want to make sure that there's not going to be a 2-month waiting period, and that it's clear of like, what is the plan? Is it going to be COBRA that's covered? How are we subsidizing that interim health care? So that's the other main point that we're bringing back to the petition to ask for specifically. Um, the next piece is on the business side. To stabilize businesses, we would like to see the insurance industry engaged during this time. We believe this is confusing for them, similar to like 9/11 was. It's a huge hit all at once, and they don't know how to respond, and I don't blame them. I mean, just thousands. At this point, it's not even thousands. We're talking millions of events are now being canceled or will be canceled over this pandemic. And how does insurance cover that, and what type of insurance coverages are on that? Force majeure, business disruption. They
Right.
don't know how to handle this. So we need to see some type of collaboration between the insurance industry, the federal government, who actually doesn't fully oversee insurance. They do a little, but actually it's more the state governments that regulate insurances. So there's got to be a collaboration there to create some type of fund of how is insurance going to actually help stabilize our industry,
Right. What about
especially in
what
light.
about indemnification? Like, have
Yeah.
you talked about that, discussed that? Because I know I've had a lot of discussions with even people, including Live Nation and AEG, about one of the things that needs to happen going forward for restaurants to open, for events to happen, is that these business owners and promoters and artists and venues
Mhm.
need to be indemnified if someone comes to that event willingly, knowing that there might be sick people in the crowd and you might bump into someone who has a virus, and
Yeah,
not being able to sue the promoter or the artist or the venue for that.
that's a good point.
If
I
I
think
choose
you're
to
going to have
go
to
eat
see
in a
that.
restaurant once restaurants reopen, and I bring my family and we're not wearing masks and other people in the restaurant aren't wearing masks or whatever, the restaurant owner should not be put in jail or be put out of business for that,
Absolutely.
if that happens, and nor should insurance companies have to pay out billions of dollars. So I think the
No,
Fed needs to step in with some sort of an indemnification law.
that's a Yeah, and I think that that's part of that whole conversation with insurance. And I mean, at the same time, and we were seeing it with car insurance too. Like some car insurance is giving actually customers back.
Yeah.
Well, the live events industry is now not operating, and we're still paying the same premium levels. So
Right.
there's got to be some type of give, and we got to
Yeah.
figure out and collaborate. We have to
Yeah.
figure this out. It's not an easy fix. I don't hold any begrudging feelings towards insurance industry. We've been in this for now 4 weeks, and you can't figure out an answer to this in 4 weeks.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
that's one of the points is insurance. And then the final point we look at for businesses, that, like I was saying before, businesses need to be stabilized in our industry. Our industry will not be able to come back from this if we're not just paying for the minimal overhead and to bring some employees back.
Right.
There's got to be some type of cash flow. So what we're calling for is an 80% actualization of net profits after overhead and standard operating, basically your OPEX expenses, so that there is money there to continue to flow through our sector of the economy and into the other sectors of the economy we support in manufacturing, these other things, so we're prepared to come back for the onslaught of events, because we know some things are going to come back slow, but other things are going to come back very fast. And we sell time, and
Yeah.
you can only squeeze time into those open venue availability dates so much.
Yeah. Well,
So
I have two more questions really. One is,
yeah.
so let's say I'm a lighting designer or I'm a gig worker of some sort, and I am able to get Isaac on the phone. Isaac, what can you do for me?
What can I do for you? I can hear what your specific needs are. I really want to hear from people that have good ideas, that kind of what their issues are, their angle on the topic, and kind of bring that in. I can help put you in touch with any knowledge or anyone I know in the industry right now, or anyone who we've connected with in this coalition who can maybe help you solve a problem. I can also bring light to your story. We're working with a lot of good contacts in the press who are really loving what we've done, and they are continually asking us, "Hey, if you have if you have something that is a good angle to report on that needs to be heard nationally, give it to us. We're going to write on it immediately."
Yeah.
So I can
No,
offer you that.
that's a great answer. I mean, giving me a louder voice, because I'm just one individual. I'm some gig worker in Iowa or something. Who's going to listen to me? But if I'm now part of this coalition, or at least
Yeah.
covered by this coalition,
Yeah, if you
it can
jump in
be.
our Facebook group, I was in there last night at like 2, 3 a.m. telling people, "Hey, write this up, send me an email. I'm going to forward it on to someone." I mean, that's just the passion of the people that are working. It's not, like I said, I want to be clear. This is not just me at this point. We're
Yeah.
dealing with a great group of we are at this
Right.
point. There's a
Right.
lot of people who are putting in amazing hours behind the scenes.
But
I
it's
mean,
still too early. Like, you can't actually put someone in contact with a bank who can provide him money yet. You can't, like,
um,
you don't quite have
I
those
I have
lines
a
all
couple.
connected.
There's a couple friends actually that I have now in banks that I probably could make a couple calls if they're having issues.
Yeah.
Um,
But
there's a couple regional banks that are being a lot more flexible.
I'm assuming
I've
at
found
some
they're easy
point
to
in the
deal
next
with.
couple of months, you're
Yeah,
actually going to have, ports right on your website, where there's a
yeah,
portal where somebody can go in and see all of the resources that are available to them. I'm a
yeah,
gig worker. I'm a small business. I'm a medium sized
yeah,
business. I'm a venue. I'm a
yep.
promoter. And they can go in and get all of their different benefits based on,
Hmm.
and that comes with funding. Obviously, you need people to build those
Yeah, we need
things.
people to build it. Right now, it's
Yeah.
just kind of an ugly. Just here, there's all the resources.
Yeah.
God bless you. If you have an issue, you can't find what you need there, reach out to one of us. But no, the
Yeah.
website's going to get a big jump this weekend. We had actually Flex Rental Solutions kind of right away sent over one of their guys who got us a website up and running quickly.
That's
But now
cool.
we're moving on to step two. We have to, the level that this organization has moved to, the website needs to reflect that. So we're actually going to have a full blown web design, hopefully launching within the next 72 hours. It's going to be a whole
Wow.
lot more functional and have the ability to add on quickly those modules, like you're saying, of resources. Because as you know, this crisis is changing by the not even the day at this point. Things are developing every 12 hours.
Well, and these poor folks, because I've been a resource in that I'm constantly putting out podcasts, but and also doing these happy hours and Zoom calls and things that I'm doing with a lot of people. And what I'm finding is there's so much noise, and people just don't know what to do. Like, if I'm a gig worker, I don't know where to go. I know that there's some sort of money available, but I call unemployment, I sit on hold for 2 hours, and then I get hung up on, or I call this number that they tell me to call and I get hung up on, or I go to a website, it crashes. What do I do? And so I think, just from that standpoint, being able to have a collective of all those
Yeah,
resources in one place is
yeah.
is very important.
And we're picking through and finding. I found one guy who has this great Google sheet he's updating every day about. He goes and he's got people in every state giving updates on what that state's doing right now for
Oh,
unemployment
that's
for
cool.
sole proprietors and gig workers.
Does he have
And
like backline phone numbers to get into?
he
The
puts
secret
he puts
numbers?
numbers. He gives advice. He types some things in there, so that's on
Right.
our resource page. I mean, and seeing that though is deathly frightening to me, because I see, as of like, maybe I don't know what it was today or yet at the end of the day yesterday, but 30 of the states weren't even accepting any unemployment applications from anyone who was not a W-2 worker yet.
That's
And that was
insane.
scary. That's insane, for especially because we're considering this hit coming off the slow winter months. So
Yeah.
everyone's now out of their savings, And we're looking at the people who need this the most to kind of support themselves are going to be waiting here probably another month plus before they start seeing checks flow.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
that's
pretty
really
frightening.
insane. So let me ask you, the other question is, what are some of the things you need to make this work,
Hmm.
on a much larger scale? Because I think your problem now is one of your problems is going to become scale. Like you said, it's a 1.5 times full-time job, and you're only one guy, and you're still trying to feed your family like the rest of us is.
Yeah.
But you now need to scale this. It needs to keep growing and
Mhm.
getting wider so that you can go say, Mr. Governor, Mr. Senator,
Mhm.
Mr. President, here's what we have. How can you help us? So,
All
what are
right.
some of the things you need?
All right. So here's a few things that people can do to help us right now. One, go to the website. It is functioning. Go and sign up as a supporter. Make sure you sign that petition as well, because if you haven't yet, we do need every signature. That looks
A-
amazing to
And what
continue
is
this
the
thing to
website?
grow. The website is liveeventscoalition.org or
Okay.
.com. We own both. It'll both go to the same place. So liveeventscoalition.com or .org. There is buttons where you can to sign the petitions. There's also a button to join us, which is basically you're just going to sign up and get on our mailing list. And so we can contact you directly, because change.org does not provide us emails. We don't get that from the petition. And we also want your logo. This industry is full of so many companies, and even our freelancers have their own logos. We're going to have the biggest logo page of supporters ever known of any association. So that's one thing you can do. Once you're on that mailing list, you're also going to see we are starting a letter writing campaign. That is where we're hopefully in a day or two we'll actually have a letter writing generator where you just go put your zip code in, and you can just press. It'll just populate with all your representatives. You can hit the button. It's going to send out the email of the federal ask that we have. Where there'll also be where you can actually just take the template, put in your information, email it personally. You can personalize what your message is. If you know a politician you want to personalize it to, you have that. So this letter writing campaign. The other piece we really need from people is pay attention to what we're doing on social media. We are going to do some powerful things on the PR front with social media and working with the media and high profile sign-ons of what we're going to do to really create this national awareness, hopefully virally, of the live events industry underneath the faces behind the scenes movement is what we're kind of crafting right now, and we'll be launching soon. Basically putting the face of our industry from behind the curtain, from behind the scenes, so that the American public sees it. So we really need everyone to really unify behind all the movements we're doing. And social media is what, I mean, this whole petition started on social media. So social media can change the world. I mean, if you look at the Arab Spring, not that we're talking about a revolution here, we're talking about things happen on social media. And if all of
Yeah.
us come together and are doing the same thing, we're putting our profile picture with a frame, we're sharing the same message. All of the people, all our family members are going to get this message, and the media
Isaac,
is going to pick up
one
on
of
it
the
very
thoughts
quickly.
that comes to mind right now is I've been seeing sort of a campaign happening on Facebook right now where people are posting pictures of themselves at work,
Yep.
basically. And I don't know if you've seen this, but if there was a hashtag Live Events Coalition on that,
Yeah.
to me, that's exactly the kind of stuff you want to be showing.
And
Is
that's
these
actually,
are our members, these are the people, this is what they do, folks.
yes.
I know you don't understand it, but
That
this
was
is
kind of
what
a
we do.
precursor. Someone did that within our group, and it's kind of started. So we're seeing it
Oh,
works.
wow.
So it will be there will be an official hashtag tied with that.
Oh, that's
I
cool.
It's either going to be We Are Events, or it's another hashtag that's tied to it. But there's also some other there's some cool things. I mean, we have
That's
some
amazing.
really creative and that's what some people were looking at us like, oh, you got a petition, but what are you doing now? Well, the last 2 weeks we really kind of fell back and really focused on the organizational development, but we also had a group of about 5 or 6 really key people putting in long hours creating kind of what is the mission, what is the content, and we created a brand for this movement
Well, it's
so
a
that
good
it just
point,
cuts right
Isaac.
through.
Somebody said it to me once. What if somebody gave you a platform and a podium and a microphone, and you got up there and you went, "Shit, I got nothing to say." So, I mean, you now have a platform. You have a 500,000 people that signed a petition. You now have this coalition that becomes the voice of that platform and the sort of engine behind that platform or the operation behind that platform. And now you really need to fill that platform with content and with good, valuable things to say and a voice, right?
Yeah, and that's what we have, and it's this team that we have has really crafted a really good platform, and it's basically the we platform. It's we are events. We are all of us together. Let's just create our. This is the platform we've crafted because I mean the cool thing of the coalition is we have people represented across the spectrum, so it speaks to everyone in our industry that
That's
touches a
amazing.
live event.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much, Isaac. I appreciate having you on here. Myself, if there's anything my podcasts, my company can do to help, please let me know.
Absolutely.
And I wish you the very best, and I'll do anything I can to help promote it. I think it's a great thing.
Well, don't worry. You'll be hearing from the outreach team here in the next couple of days, and they'll get you some materials that you can post and make sure you spread through your network. So
Amazing.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a great day and keep doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. Thanks, Marcel.
All right. Thank you, man.
All right.
Bye bye.